like to transition into writing here because inherently we've been talking about writing when we've been talking about end-of-unit tasks and daily tasks. So I'd like us to think about the unit design framework. How does writing come out with this framework? What might be some ways that we can really get students thinking about writing through this unit design? What about text selection? How does writing come out in our text selection? What might be some of your hunches about that?
Selecting texts that are written in a variety of ways so that they have a model is one of the best things we can do. And selecting authors who have a certain style that is, something that maybe we see they really need or that they haven't been exposed to, and reading that so that then they can all have that shared experience of going back and saying, oh, I can pull from how they did this. And that it's okay to model really closely to it initially and then allow them to make it more their own so that they have that confidence.
Right. So using that text as a mentor and that reading, writing reciprocity, look how Seymour Simon uses compare and contrast, this text structure in Crocodiles and Alligators, and look how he uses this section to describe, and how might we use that text structure in our own writing. So it's a really exciting thing to really study that author and then have that be the outflow in our writing. Thank you.
I was just thinking about, as far as the text selection, if it's relevant, you won't have to push the students to write. If it's relevant to their everyday lives, something they're interested in, they're going to want to write about it, versus you as the teacher saying, hey, this is what you should be writing about.
Build that motivation.
I think paired with that is also, and both comments, this really relates to both, and this may be obvious, but there's something about when we hear words and there's something that speaks to us that we can't name. It's an inspirational kind of thing. So like, I want to write like that. So I want to be able to turn a phrase in that way. And it's speaking to a part that we won't necessarily know until the student hears it out loud or reads it themselves, or there's something about that turns, and it'll just be maybe a few students who have a particular propensity for loving that, but I think we can't underestimate the power that has for them being able to write.
So that catalyst for thought. Yeah.
Words have a meaning to us in different ways just because of how they sound and how they go together and how they, why does alliteration work? Because it's about sound. So anyway, that would be a whole another topic, but.
Yeah, and my mind went on a little bit of a in the meadow kind of time when you were talking, because I'm like, well then what about also how we can use our own writing in our classroom to inspire? Not only using a mentor text from an author that we see published, but aren't we all authors? How about let's use maybe some of our own text to inspire each other? Yeah, that's exciting stuff. So text selection, and candidates may not see that. Might not see that connection with mentor text. Of course, with end-of-unit text and daily tasks, end-of-unit tasks, there are lots of opportunities for writing. I think in the lesson sequence, though, about those times where I had a big run on sticky notes and I'd have to go to my principal and say, hey, I need more sticky notes. Because, aren't there those times where we're experiencing a text together and I just want them to have a pencil and paper and write on a little sticky note? That's writing. That's sharing thoughts. That's sharing my sticky note with my partner and then my other shoulder partner, and let's talk about this together. Or those times where we have whiteboards and we're able to write in the instance, or in the midst of this learning. So lesson sequences give us a lot of opportunities at activities or, the graphic organizers that we can play. All of these things can be feeders for this great writing experience that we have, as well as those daily tasks with the example that we experienced. So I'd like us to experience an activity with this, and I want us to also think about content and process as we experience this, because again, this is going to be a skimming process, because again, you have these in your back pocket. But I want you to think about, as you experience this activity, your candidates may not, and the field may have different levels of acquisition of this knowledge. This level of thinking of, I model as a teacher, and then I get kids composing with me, and then we work out the differentiated needs they have, and then independently, I give them experiences where they can write, and I confer with them, and we improve and progress them as writers. So as we experience this activity, think about your candidates and what they might need to help them be successful when they go out in the field, and also think about process as we go through this. It's going to be pretty quick. I'd like you to take out this text, and actually this is showcasing of a little snippet of our winter convening material for our coaches. The topic, the instructional outcome is interactive speaking and writing, and so this is a little snippet of the writing component. It kind of gives a broader picture of writing. Okay? So, the room isn't going to inhibit us. We're still going to figure this out. We need to come up with 4 people, okay? We're going to do a jigsaw. It's a modified jigsaw with this activity. So I'd like you to find a group of 4, if that means just turning around with the people behind you or moving a bit. Find a group of 4 in the room. And if you're in a place where you're kind of out there by yourself, connect with somebody else so you're in a group of 4, please. Okay. So in our groups of 4, now I'd like you to number off 1 to 4. Okay? All numbers are going to read the first part, up to modeled writing. Okay? Number 1s, put your finger up. Number 1s, you're going to read modeled writing and shared writing. Number 2s, interactive writing. Number 3s, small group writing. And number 4s, independent writing and writing conferences. Now remember, this is an abbreviated, truncated activity. So you're going to skim, you're going to become an expert, and then when everybody is finished skimming their section, ones you're going to start to share your instructional strategy for writing. Okay? All right, thanks. So what is a must share back with our group? And let's mainly focus on candidate prep. What are some thoughts you're having about how we prepare our candidates to be able to not only know what these are, but to be able to get them woven into the thread of what they do in the classroom?
I had the benefit of working with a great group, so what I'm saying is more of the group than me. But we talked about this as almost in a basketball analogy with a 30-second timeout in the independent writing, the conferences. To take a quick minute, and I think you said it best, is to choose your battle and to choose the most appropriate aspect to give that student a jump start to continue on in their process. But it's quick, it's 30 seconds, over and done, and you give the students that kickstart to move forward. Yeah, I had an opportunity to observe teachers and mentor teachers and candidates also interact in the same way in their practice, in which the the mentor and the candidate would have a 30-second or less huddle in practice. So as the student teacher was working through the room, the mentor teacher and the student teacher would come together, a quick little impromptu hint, and then moving back on, and it improved practice throughout. So those little mini huddles work for our students as well as our teacher candidates.
So helping our candidates understand we can't address everything in a conference. So we have to understand what a student is going to need at the moment, in the moment, to help them to grow in sophistication. There's an art to conferencing, right, with students? And there's an art to even peer conferencing. Getting a first grader to talk with another first grader and giving some sort of scaffolds to get that to happen even. So helping our teachers understand how to conduct those kinds of experiences that grow writers.
With the small group writing, just like small group reading, it's a classroom management issue. And my candidates will say, well, what are the others doing? And you're like, they're doing something that they can easily do independently. But just even with the classroom management piece, that teacher has got to be skilled at being engaged with the small group and then knowing everything else that's going on in that classroom. So I see small group reading or writing very much aligned with classroom management strategy.
Oh, definitely. It's an outer context of all of this. So making sure that there are impactful things in that small group time that are happening, that aren't busy work, that are connected to what we're doing, and that continue to grow students. Mm-hmm.
We talked just a little bit in our group about how sometimes our candidates are not comfortable doing these types of writing themselves. And so it makes it really difficult for them to employ these strategies in the classrooms where they're working. So part of our job as instructors and professors is to really help our candidates get on the level of, doing some of these things in the classroom and taking them through the steps and giving them opportunities to be engaged on their level so they have that confidence to go out and do it with their students.
How do we get them to take risks? They're not confident in their writing themselves. It's kind of scary to be up in front of a chart paper and model writing and articulate what we're doing. Camboard's bringing the invisible visible. If I am not sure of myself as a writer, do I know what processes that I need to help articulate so they're visible for proficiency? So how do we help students, our candidates, with that ability at risk, to take those risks? What are some thoughts you're having around that?
With our candidates, we use so we use improv training to think on your feet, and so on the spot teaching, kind of improv quick scenarios on a regular basis with them improves that skill for them and removes the fear from that aspect of it. So an example would be, I would, did this last week. This is secondary though, but from that aspect of it. But we pulled them all together and they had a model, a writing piece that they would do in a history social studies class. But I said, so now your topic is 1960s, Kennedy, Bay of Pigs. I don't care what you know, teach us something. And then boom, from that aspect of it. But and we choose social studies intentionally because of this generation's lack of social studies knowledge. The revisionist perspective. But the other piece we do also with them is comedy improv. Because if you can make a fool of yourself in front of your peers, you can make a fool of yourself in front of your students. And the students love it, yeah.
So it really is being able to think on your feet. And to know that, as we're drafting, I think the freedom in writing is as we're drafting, it doesn't have to be perfect. And we need to model that for our students, that it's okay if I am thinking and I have a process, a thought coming out, and I write it, and then I go, oh, I could make that better by, and I get out my correction tape or my whiteout or my sticky notes, and I cover it and I give it another try, because then we model that writing is recursive. So there's so much to that ability to just have them thinking, so what was the value of you showing what you did as a writer as it didn't come out as you hoped it would? How powerful is that for our students to know it's okay? It's okay. All right, such powerful thinking. So there's so much to the importance of writing, and so much that our candidates might need to know. So this just bullets a few of those things. Our candidates understanding the different forms of writing that come from standards 1, 2, and 3, helping them understand how to create experiences with narrative writing, informational writing, opinion writing that feeds into argumentative writing, and how to infuse those into quality experiences as time goes on. Researching, so paraphrasing and citing sources and finding quality sources, and how to make that happen, as well as like task, purpose, and audience. Having different tasks that we can have students do that can build, so that we have a menu of options that gives students choices, giving them an authentic audience so they really feel like there's a real purpose. How many of you have seen the eyes of a student when they kind of catch, whoa, I wrote that text and I'm an author? Isn't that the best thing to see in a student's eyes, or to see that they're reading my text out in the hall when I posted it? There's an authenticity that we need to create around this writing experience to breed that excitement around it, as well as helping our candidates understand Standard 10 with writing. That idea that there's short bursts of writing, and then there's longer process-based writing. So we have this on-demand writing that could be this in the moment, on the spot, I'm going to give us something to think about and I want you to write about it, which is a little bit more linear. I have to draft and I kind of have to edit on the run. And then this recursive process-based writing that goes from pre-writing, all of this up to publishing, but that recursive nature. This is a really, really tricky thing with a lot of teachers that I've worked with. Is, how do you really bring that to life along the way for your students, as well as using evidence from multiple sources. You see that running as a theme. So this is just another tool. This came from our shared reading webinar that was with our summer learning series, and it just kind of really gives that idea of different forms of writing. I know as a teacher, sometimes I was bad about kind of having my favorite, and I didn't expose my students to others, but how does choice come into this? What are some things you're thinking about with this? You see some of them that are repetitive because they fit in different places, could fit. But how does student choice, what does the idea of student choice conjure here? I'm sorry? Motivation.
I see it as really connected to motivation, because if they have a voice in how they're going to demonstrate their knowledge, that's key. And then also letting them be able to argue to say, well, you know what, this type of writing would fit this scenario. Could I use this? And if they can show how it might be used as an opinion argument, but that it also could be built within a narrative piece, that they could be combining multiple types of writing within one piece.
Yeah. So for my third graders, they may have never done a brief before, so they have no idea what a brief is. So I might have to coach them on how to create a brief, and we're going to build up to that in the end of unit task. But maybe next time we're going to do a pamphlet But the experience after that, they might choose whether they want to create a brief or a pamphlet, or maybe they have another idea of something they'd like to do. So there could be some times where, based on my purpose, that we're heading to a common form, but there could also be times where we have different forms that we choose and build upon.
I think the other thing that's powerful for me about putting even just at some point like lots of these options in front of students is that I think they don't think about a lot of these as writing. And that there's so much of this idea that writing is a 5-paragraph essay, which sometimes can feel really overwhelming. And so when you say, oh, you mean like the label on my juice box is writing, and I could think about how I might do that if I wanted to make my own cereal. I could, design that, and that's fun and engaging, and that's writing too. And so I think that just giving kids that window into that writing is a lot of different things. And I think about what we do as adults and in our careers and work and what we're drawn to. And, we all write in different ways all the time. So I think that's fun.
Exactly.
Jumping off of that, I see also is having these up so that they can see what all they have learned. Oh gosh, we've already done this. I know how to do this. I know how to do this. And then it builds their confidence in seeing this is how far I've come, and maybe this new one is not going to be so insurmountable because I've already learned how to do these others.
Yep. Yeah. So think about collecting all of these in a portfolio. Those of, thinking about authentic assessment and students growing over time. I remember having my students create portfolios, whether they were in kindergarten, and we had portfolio preview night in kindergarten, and they walked through with their parents, and they were in charge, or my middle schoolers, and I thought, oh gosh, this is not going to be cool for them, and they thought it was the best thing ever. But I had so many of my students, it's crazy that I'm old enough that one of my kindergartners is inviting me to her wedding now. But I hear from my students, I haven't thrown away that portfolio. And what does that say about the learning experiences that we need to promote for our candidates so that their students don't want to throw away that portfolio? That doesn't come from a group of worksheets that we've done throughout the year. Powerful.
Forgive me if somebody has already mentioned this, but we have to remember too that that all of their writing doesn't have to be high stakes writing assignment or end of the unit task or something that is polished and published and displayed. That they need to be doing writing to learn activities throughout their days and throughout their interactive read alouds and shared readings and short writing assignments that are not non-threatening, that just allow them to put their thoughts down and create through journal writing, quick writes. Even organizing thoughts in a graphic organizer is writing. It's writing to learn. So to remember that although we want the end product is for them to be able to produce these things, that they need to have multiple opportunities to write without being given feedback, but without high consequences.
Yes. You might create an exit ticket for me and hand that to me, and that's as important of an understanding of who you are than some other experiences. There are so many things that we can do, but to impress that upon students, that we write for different purposes for so many things. Great, thank you. Thoughts? Judy?
Those students who are creative and don't think they can write get all of those options on the narrative side where they can do creative writing, which is just as meaningful for them to express their thoughts as writing an argument or something that's more formal writing.
So we're on the downhill slide here. Let's take in this quote. So yesterday we heard, I think it was Paul that said that reading is an equity issue. What are you thinking as you connect with this quote?
I'm thinking that, reading is certainly an avenue to, other worlds, but I think that writing, and when students write well, it gives them an opportunity, an option to go deeper within themselves, to see what they think, and to bring it to a level of articulation. It's another avenue to explore more deeply within oneself.
You have to really, it's kind of that soul searching.
We were talking about bringing our students' cultures into the classroom, and I think this is where you can really tap into that cultural capital that students have, experiences they've had, where they are, they're the only ones who might understand this, and they can teach us about it, but it also allows them to share this with others. And we also had a discussion last night in class about tapping into the history of those around us and interviewing our, aunts, uncles, grandparents, or either going to local, senior citizen centers and really capturing their voice and how they can be that voice for someone else.
Cultural capital. I'm chewing on that a little bit. Gosh, what a powerful statement. And how we could pull that back as far as giving that voice of who I am and infusing that in what I know from the evidence that I've learned. Powerful. I think you had a thought. You're really good about the mic delay.
Okay. This just came to mind when I read this because it had the civic life and global economy. It made me pause, and I even turned to my shoulder partner over here and said, this is beyond Twitter, right? Because our kids, our students that are in our classroom, our candidates, they are the master of the short, sweet, no capital letters, no periods, in that context. So trying to show them that there's more beyond that is, I think, really crucial for us, especially in today's time.
Sometimes our society is about the sound bite, so how important is it to prepare, especially when our candidates kind of are in that world? How do we impress upon them the need for this depth that we need to experience in the writing for our students? Yeah. All right, so we want to just take a moment because there's been a lot of information here this morning. So just want you to be able to take a sticky note. What are a couple of thoughts that you're having? What are some takeaways that you just have to capture as you're thinking about learning that you want to provide your candidates and you're thinking about your program? What are some takeaways for you? So just bullet those on a sticky note. And we're going to transition here a little bit, in just a little bit, maybe just a minute or two on the notes, and then Annie will be up next. Thank you so much for this engaging conversation this morning.